Oh, oh, okay. All right. Now we're going. So this is the introduction to this thing. Today, 47 has been inaugurated, and he's currently carrying out his promise to be, quote, a dictator for a day. What does that mean? This discussion will be based strictly on the philosophy of our previous gurus, exactly as it is, with absolutely no partisan affiliation on my part, no deviation from the eternal truth with a capital T. That's kind of like what Adi says before he makes a statement in his Bhakti Center Zoom class. One of the first things on our newly elected racist dictator's agenda is mass deportation. Today, we will talk about how he has already closed the border. So he made some executive orders already and shut down the app that the Biden administration created to facilitate migrants' legal immigration. We'll discuss how we can serve Krishna by subduing the envious mentality of cruelty directed toward our black and brown brothers and sisters who will be subjected to this massive personal trauma. They will be forced to suffer by separating the children from their parents again, this time on the scale of tens of millions, at a cost of $88 billion annually for a total cost of $967.9 billion over the course of more than a decade. Do you want to read this? This is Prabhupada's excerpt from the 1976 bicentennial issue of Back to Godhead magazine. It was called Declaring Our Dependence on God. Can you read this?
Let me look.
You're a Prabhupada disciple, so I think that you're more.
Well, on America's bicentennial, where are we?
Starting here.
Okay. On the America's bicentennial issue, the Back to Godhead magazine in 1976, Prabhupada asked, "Why do Americans claim that the land belongs to them? When the first settlers went to America, they said, 'This land belongs to God. Therefore, we have a right to live here.' So why are they now not allowing others?" Oh, that's better. So why are they now not allowing others to settle the land?
Oops.
That is their, what
Sorry.
is their philosophy? Hmm?
Sorry about that. I lost the
What
okay.
is their philosophy? There are so many overpopulated countries. The American government should let those people go to America and should give them facility uh, to cultivate the land and produce grains. Why are they not doing that? They have taken others' property by force, and by force they are checking others from going there. So that's a very interesting point. They've taken other properties by force, and by force, they're not really allowing other people to go there.
Right.
So, what is the philosophy behind this? Roguism is their philosophy. They take the property by force and then they make a new law. They make a law that no one can take another's property by force. So they are thieves. They cannot restrict God's property from being occupied by God's sons. America and other countries in the United Nations should agree that wherever there is enough land, it may be utilized by the human society for producing food. The government can say, all right, you are overpopulated, your people can come here. We will give them land and they can produce food. We would see a wonderful result. But what do they do that? But will they do that? No. Then what is their philosophy? Roguism. I take the land by force and then I won't allow others to come here. Trump
Yeah,
ran. Okay,
Rogue is just
that's the end
another
of the
name
quote.
for thief,
That's the
right?
end of the quote here.
Yeah, yeah, that's the quote. Rogue
And
is
where,
another name for thief, right?
excuse me,
Is roguism, is that as another name for thieves? Thieves like thieves and
be a
rogues.
rogue. Yeah. Thieves and rogues and miscreants. They just want to make disturbance.
Yeah. Well, they are thieves because they're claiming God's property as their own. Uh, I actually did a illustrative slideshow video of Prabhupada's peace formula, that he read in front of the United Nations building in 1966 during the Vietnam War.
Uh-huh.
And it's based on Bhagavad Gita 5:29, which says that everything is belongs to God. God is the supreme proprietor. But he said within that pamphlet, he said that all the disturbances to peace in this country or around the world are due to this false claim of proprietorship. And that is what is causing all this conflict. And so this is the problem. Also, it's based on hatred. Like it's been a history in America that whenever immigrants come, like the Irish came in this 19th century, and the Chinese came and to build the railroads also in the 19th century. And whenever there's a new somebody different coming into our country, everybody gets very upset and they think that they're taking our jobs, right?
Mhm.
And so also this Trump is trying to actually outdo Eisenhower because in history, Eisenhower during the in the 1950s, they were bringing in workers. I'm not sure exactly. Oh, they're Mexican workers, and so this was after World War II, and the veterans were complaining that they were taking the jobs away from veterans, and so Eisenhower had a mass deportation program of his own in which he was deporting thousands, if not millions, of Mexicans from this country, and they called it Operation Wetback, which is recently become so more recently become a racist term, a pejorative. So Trump is going to try to outdo even Eisenhower's immigration, a mass deportation program during the GOP convention, the Republican RNC Republican National Convention. They had signs, placards out in the audience, and it said "Mass deportation now." And so he ran on these talking points of getting, rid of the immigrants that are poisoning the blood of our country. That's another Hitlerian type of terminology. Hitler used that, the Jewish blood is poisoning our Aryan German blood. And they did it to dehumanize the Jews and justify the systematic murder of millions during the Holocaust. And similarly, in the 21st century, Trump is planning on dehumanizing millions of migrants, and locking them up in huge detention centers, which he's going to build, kind of like the Japanese internment camps after the World War. And see, because there's also a psychological idea behind that, because when you're putting people in prison, most people think, oh, well, they must have done something wrong. They must be criminals. So they get labeled like that. And so it makes them, look guilty of something and then throwing them out of the country with or without their kids, even if they're born here. And another executive order that Trump has done is to It's actually adverse to the Constitution. The Constitution says that anybody's born in America, they are citizens. But he has like made an executive order reversing that decision. So nobody, just because you're born in America doesn't mean you're a citizen anymore. That was another executive order.
Well,
Although, so
the thing is that Prabhupada said that just because you're born in a country like America is supposed to be a democracy, and supposed to, everybody's supposed to vote. But Prabhupada explains that you need to be qualified. You need to be qualified, first of all, to run for office, and you need to be able to be a qualified voter. That means a knowledgeable voter, a person who's knowledgeable about the issues and about the characteristics of the people that are running for office. So this is the what the founding fathers wanted
right,
of America, that people need not only to have like maybe they were working on the farm or they had a small business that they were running, but they also needed to be informed and uh, utilize their time by reading. And so people can get a better sense of the various issues that the candidates are presenting. So
right. And
nobody does that nowadays.
nobody
People
reads
just,
anymore, even what to speak. And if they're getting their sound bites from mass media, which is often very biased in one way or the other, in their own little algorithm bubble from whatever news source they get their networks that they're on, and they don't see both sides of the story, and they're not educated. So Prabhupada said that the people are like fourth class people, and they're electing 10th class people. That's the
Mhm.
result of democracy. That's why he called it demon crazy. But if we actually try to, Prabhupada also said that democracy can work if uh, we educate the people as to what are,
Mhm.
they have to be educated, like you said. They should be educated into what is moral and ethical, and what the issues are, and how our representatives will represent us. And then they can make a decision as to who will be governing them. And it's really important because there is no such thing as truth anymore. You know, just today, during his inaugural address, Trump was talking about the fires in Los Angeles, which he is going to make worse by getting rid of all the regulations for climate change and letting all the petrol companies drill as much as they want. Drill, baby, drill, he says. And so he lied and said that they do absolutely nothing. They have done absolutely nothing. They didn't lift a finger to stop those fires. They just let them go. It's a total lie. That's all he does is lie. And so when people hear these lies, they hear them long enough and often enough, and they don't know what the truth is anymore. People in general don't know what the truth is. So how can they be informed if they're only fed on lies?
Yeah,
Hannah
so
Arendt.
we're not against any particular person, but we're for the truth
Yeah, I
and
mean,
for those people that are speaking the truth. So my truth is not different than your truth. The
there's only
truth
one
is the
truth.
truth. And actually, being truthful is one of the four principles of Dharma.
Right,
There's four principles. One is truthfulness, compassion, cleanliness, and also self-sacrifice. Those four principles. And one of the only firm ones standing is truth. People don't know what self-sacrifice is. People don't know really anymore what cleanliness, which means internal and external cleanliness, the way the mind functions. is the mind thinking of dirty and nasty things. So there's all sorts of elements to cleanliness. But the thing is that the truth, everybody needs to have an understanding of what the truth is, or the whole culture will descend into confusion and chaos.
Right. I heard that Bhumi, the goddess, Dharma is the four legs that you're talking about that the religious principles are based on: truthfulness, cleanliness, mercy, and austerity. Is that what you were saying?
Well, yes, I said
So,
compassion, and austerity basically means self-sacrifice.
right, right, yeah,
I can't tell you how many times a day you should be eating or what you should be doing, but we, it's an element of, okay, I'm going to perform some self-sacrifice for my own well-being and also make a sacrifice for the well-being of our society and our culture.
right,
So the politicians, they're supposed to be the first one to make a sacrifice, but the thing is, they're not making any sacrifice. None of
no,
these politicians or the billionaires, just like we know from our literatures, there was King Ranti. And when there was a drought in his kingdom, and so there was no food growing, but he, on his personal grounds, had a vast storehouse. So he made a sacrifice by fasting and giving away all of the food that was stored in his storehouse to the citizens.
wow.
Who's making those type of self-sacrifices nowadays?
Also, the
Nobody.
commanders of the government, usually were the first ones out into battle.
That's another issue. Yeah, they join the
Yeah,
men in the ranks, definitely.
so the truth is supposed to be the last remaining leg that Dharma is standing on, the bull of Dharma. And that one is rapidly being beaten to the point where it's hardly being stood on it anymore. I mean, I think during his first term, Trump told 30,376 lies. That was just in his first term. What to speak of in the 4 years interim, and how he's already telling lies even in his inauguration speech. And
Well,
so, it's like,
everyone, if you really examine politicians and the corporations, in one sense, they're all not telling the truth to one degree or another. This is
right,
like all pervasive. People um, value money over the truth. They value wealth and they value power over compassion. So the Vedic culture, these were the foremost things that people valued: compassion and cleanliness and truthfulness. Nowadays, these things are easily jettisoned. They're easily discarded for what people value, which is riches. And that's why in the Bhagavad Gita it's explained that greed and lust and anger are the three gates leading to hell. And this is also explained in the Bible that, it's easier for an elephant to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven.
yeah,
So, because people who are wealthy, they are so egocentric and their whole centric nature is all about meism,
right,
and not about the community or the society, and not about giving. So, just like, for instance, in previous times, people who were very wealthy, they gave, just like Carnegie. He was a millionaire, But with that money, he opened up libraries in Pittsburgh and other places around the country. You don't hear any of these rich people. Like what type? Has Musk established any foundations?
I don't think
Rockefeller, he
so. Trump had
established the
his foundation,
Rockefeller
but
Foundation,
it was
but
totally a scam, and they've shut it down and sued him because it was all just a
yes,
grift.
exactly.
Just like it says in the Gita in 16th chapter, it says, "I will give some charity, and in this way I shall rejoice." You know, that they just make an effort to appear to be religious, but they're not really religious.
It's all show.
Yeah, and that's interesting what you were saying about the leaders um, not telling the truth, even in business or in corporations. Um, Hannah Arendt, who was a in the 70s or 60s, she was a philosopher, political philosopher, and she was saying she was against this whole idea of telling lies in government business because it erodes the political systems to the point where people can't make any determination anymore as to what is the truth. So they can't pick their representative, and it makes it easier for totalitarian personalities to come and say, "Well, just forget everything and surrender to me." Just like Krishna, Krishna said, "Just forget everything you've heard and surrender to me." So the totalitarian leader, he lies all the time because he thinks that this democracy is too much work. That's what Trump told the Christians. He said, "Come on, just vote for me this one time. This is the last time you'll have to vote. Just do it this one time, and then we're going to take care of everything so much you won't have to do it anymore." It's like a botheration because democracy is very messy and it's very complicated, and we have checks and balances. When you have an authoritarian dictator, it's very easy for them, and they think that it's very going to be very nice for them. But the problem is, and they think it's going to be all clean and not confusing, but it's actually just the opposite. When you have a totalitarian, authoritarian figure, it's full of chaos and confusion, as we have seen. And so, therefore, people are permanently in a state of chaos and they surrender to whatever the dear leader wants because they think it will create order. The strong man, that's the strong man philosophy, lie and just, get into office by hook or by crook. And then when people are tired of doing things, taking up their own, responsibility, they just say, "Well, you do it." It's kind of like an abdication of their responsibility of the citizens to expect the leaders to do it. But generally in democracy, the citizens are the ones that take the lead, and then the leaders get a flag and they get in front of the parade, and then follow the people. It's supposed to be a people powered thing, but if the people aren't informed and aware and of what's going on, as you said, they're not going to be able to they're not going to be able to make any kind of parade. They used to say that democracy or Democrats, the Democrats in particular, is like trying to organize Democrats is like herding cats. Cats are
Mhm.
very independent. I saw a meme, a cartoon once that had a cat, well, there was like in the window, and a cat was on the chair, a cat that was on the sofa, a cat that was on the mantle. And each cat was saying, "I am God. I am God." And the caption of the cartoon said, "This is why cats can't have organized religion."
Ah.
I thought that was cute. Cats are
Yeah,
like
so
that.
the thing is that there has to be responsibility in a society and in a culture, a community. So,
Right,
for instance, in what the founding fathers were actually advocating was a simple lifestyle. People had their own professions. It was a capitalistic lifestyle. People had jobs or people had shops. people worked their farms, and so everyone was responsible, and people lived close to each other. So,
Yeah.
for instance, if I wanted a pair of shoes, then I would go down the street to the shoemaker and have a pair of shoes made. And if those shoes wore down, I wouldn't have to buy a new pair of shoes. He can refurbish the shoes.
Yeah.
So I had a relationship. People had a relationship with uh, the shopkeepers and the manufacturers. But
Right.
then what happened in the Industrial Revolution, that relationship disintegrated because the guy down the street or in your neighborhood wasn't making the product. The product was made somewhere else in a big factory, and
Or it's made
eventually,
overseas.
yes, eventually the manufacturing was shipped overseas where there was cheaper labor. So some guy who's making these things overseas doesn't care about the quality of the shoes or whatever they're making because they'll never see you.
Right.
You don't have a personal relationship with these people.
Right.
The shopkeeper down the street, with the shoemaker, there was a personal relationship. If he
Yeah.
didn't make the shoes properly, then you could go back to the guy and chew his ear off.
Right.
So, but you can't do that when the goods are made in a big factory or if they're made overseas.
It's like, when you try to contact customer service too of some big company, you can't talk to anybody. You can like put an
Yeah, right.
email and then they'll maybe respond to you, but nobody can, there's no personal relationship. Everybody's a
Mhm.
really, really just, like to the point now, it's like with social media and their iPhones and everything, nobody has any contact with anybody anymore. Even at dinner, people are watching they're eating with one hand and then they're on their iPhone with their other hand and and everybody's in their cars. But it's like they used to say that all politics is local. So all
Mhm.
economy should be local too, like you're saying. All economy should be local, all agrarian aspects of society, everything should be produced locally. The macrobiotic fad or whatever it is. I think that's from China. It's not really a fad, but
Mhm.
produce things locally. We try to uh, go to all local food, farmers markets.
Mhm.
Then you can develop a relationship with these people too, because that's Farmer Gary. He has an organic farm, and we can strike up a conversation and. We found a lot of good produce. My wife is kind of like the crazy vegetable lady because we're both vegetarians, and
Uh-huh.
she really gets excited when it's, food when the farmers market's open. We found a new this organic farm. During the pandemic, they were actually you could come into their place and they would deliver it to you, and they would, you could pick what you wanted. You ever had delicata squash?
No.
Yeah, that's like a new thing. Delicata squash. It's so sweet. It's almost like candy, but it doesn't even have a skin, so that it's like uh you can bake it and then and you don't even have to put anything on it. No butter, no brown sugar, anything. It's just like almost like candy. It's so sweet. But yeah, I discovered that from the local farmers market. Never would
And
have
so
you never
you,
see it anywhere else.
how often do they gather the farmers market? Once a
Oh,
week or
well,
what?
it's once a year. It's like there are several of them in town here. There's one in Squirrel Hill, which is really the best one. That's kind of like a Jewish neighborhood up in 279
Squirrel
East.
Hill, yeah.
Yeah, that's a famous area there, and that is really the nicest farmers market. If you ever get to Pittsburgh, if you take your wife there, she would enjoy that, I think, because you can
Well,
get some really good
what
produce.
days are they functioning?
The farmers market in Squirrel Hill, I believe, starts at 9 o'clock on Sundays.
Uh-huh.
So
I mean,
yeah,
what people need to do is really simplify their lives shop locally,
Right.
keep the currency circulating.
Hmm.
Nowadays, also there's another um, scam going on with the bitcoins and the stuff
Yeah.
like that, where this is supposed to be new money. I think it's very often it's not even it's not a coin, right? What it's just something that's on the internet
Yeah,
that you
it's just
buy
a number
into.
in cyberspace.
Yeah, so there's all sorts of devious things out there to scam the people
Right.
because back in the 1800s, the United States grew in two ways. One by the free labor, the slave labor that they brought from Africa.
Right.
So that was free, and the market, the economy was benefiting from that. And another thing they did was to grab up the land of the Native American people. So
Yeah.
those were the most two exploited segments of the country. But nowadays, we're all targets for exploitation.
Right.
You know, before it was the Native Americans and the blacks. Now it's all of us. And
Right. We're all
so,
cogs in the machine.
exactly. So
Yeah, I mean,
this,
yet we have the audacity to say that the you Americans or America, we built this country. We didn't build it. A black man built it. And the Native Americans, and it's not our country either. That was another thing that Prabhu was talking about. The Americans, when they came here, they said, okay, this is God created this country for us to live on. All of God's creatures should live on it. And then they said, we have a right to live here too. And so Native Americans said, yeah, sure, no, yeah, come on in. And then they said, now it's our country and you guys have to go. And we can't let anybody else in. But the Native Americans didn't have even any conception of this is our land. They had the conception that all this land belongs to Wankantanka.
there was
So
no
they didn't
second
have a conception of this is my
of
land.
ownership. There was no
It had
conception of
no proprietorship.
owning the land.
Yeah, this is this great spirit, the Wankantanka, and the Lakota tribe. And so they destroyed that whole it's just basically, when you have this mentality that this is mine, just like it's really childish, like a child will come up and say, okay, this is mine. If it used to be mine, then it's mine. If you have it and I had it before, then it's still mine. You claim proprietorship over something and say, I, me, and mine. That was I think that was a song by George Harrison. I mean, mine. It was based on the Hamameti, the Vedic aphorism.
Mhm.
So this is the disease, this bodily concept, either selfishly or extended. This is actually what causes all the strife in the world. And if somehow or other people have to be educated that nothing is mine, not even our bodies,
Yeah, but
right?
in one sense, it sounds like you're
Actually, our
talking
our
about,
our program is going to end here in less than a minute.
oh, it is okay. So
Yeah, but
we'll
I
have to
really thank you
continue
for
sometime
coming
again.
on. I enjoyed this kind of type of conversation. I agree with you. The discussion is better than the reading.
We need to do a little reading at the beginning to get a focus,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
uh,
I
this
agree.
discussion is much more engaging. You
Exactly.
have a lot of podcasts, like, for instance, Namrasa's podcast. He brought on Venkata, and together they share the podcast. And who are those other guys? The Wisdom of the Sages.
Wisdom to say that's
There's two of
Kishto.
those guys.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway, it's always good to be conversational and to incorporate more and more ideas and bounce